Do you feel sometimes that you're not really living? That somehow your life is monotonous, that somehow your life is going through the motions, but somehow you're not really there. Life is bland, life is boring, and somehow it's almost like a monochrome existence. Well, we're going to explore this in this video and show you how you can add more depth, meaning, and happiness to your life. Recently, I was on Quora.com and I was answering a question. And the question is, why do we feel like we don't live sometimes? I think it's a good question. The basic problem that human beings have is civilization and instinct. Instinct is here and civilization is here. Now, Sigmund Freud, one of his works he came out was called Civilization and its Discontents. And he basically suggested that a thing called repression is the price that we pay for civilization. So what's really happening is somewhere along the way through evolution, we learned to repress ourselves. We learned to fit in with society. And namely what we're usually repressing, by and large, are strong emotions. Things like the sex drive and violence. They're the major two are sex drive and violence, but also things like saying inappropriate things, inappropriate activities. So we learn at an early age how to fit in, and we repress the instinct. So for example, somebody cuts you up in traffic, you want to get out of your car and beat them, you don't do it. You see an attractive person walking down the street, you don't just walk over to them and make a pass. Well, some people do, but I suppose most people don't. So we learn to fit in through rules and regulations. Now, there's a price, you have to pay the piper. And the price you have to pay the piper with repression is a dullness called monotony. Okay, so there's two aspects in life we have. So we have instinct and we have civilization, but also we have metonymy and we have metaphor. Okay, metonymy is where everything is bland and boring and the same, and metaphor is meanings. So what you actually have is, we could say, theses and antitheses and synthesis. Okay, that we have a mixture of slipping and sliding of meanings. Okay, why is a joke funny? A joke is funny because a deeper meaning slips out, a meaning which might not be 100% socially acceptable. Like, I can criticize you in a joke and it's funny, but if it's not a joke, it's just seen as negative and critical. So I can get rid of my naughty thought, my repressed thought, by making a joke. Okay? So that's an example of how, say, jokes are metaphorical and funny. But actually, if we look at it, everything that's expressive is metaphorical. Why do we like TV shows, movies, books, art? Why do we like these things? We like these things because they have meaning attached. The slipping and sliding of meanings producing something new and beautiful. Okay? The Lacanian psychoanalysts would call this Aufhebung, this theses, antitheses, mixing together and creating a synthesis, creating something new. And this is the creativity of human beings. This is the specialness of human beings, because we can take 2 plus 2 and get 800. It's not just 2 plus 2 equals 4. We can have added meaning, metaphorical meaning, deeper meaning. And the other interesting thing is there's no end to that meaning. Okay, for example, when they were coming up with all this GPRS stuff and they start mapping countries and so on, they came to an interesting thing, and this called Mandelbrot Set. And the Mandelbrot Set is basically a very simple incrementation of an algorithm, and it creates a pattern within a pattern within a pattern within a pattern within a pattern. Now, if you look at that pattern, it will go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into infinity. We can also look at, say, we try to draw the outline of, say, a coastline. And you can go into deeper and deeper detail, and it will actually start turning into the Mandelbrot set. The more detail you go to, say you're trying to map somewhere for GPRS, the more detail you go into, the endless detail. This is metaphor. And this is why metaphor gives meaning to life. Human beings are meaning machines, bioelectrochemical meaning machines. We are all about meaning, and we need meaning. It's like our mind needs to live on meaning. When there's no meaning, we have meaninglessness, and it's not feeling good. So, the problem with society is that in an effort to fit in, we repress our feelings. We repress the bad, the desire to hit somebody, the desire to have sex, the desire to say or do something inappropriate, but also we repress the good. The expressiveness, the self-expressiveness of who we are is also repressed, and that's bad. So the reason why you are not as expressive as you like to, why your life sometimes feels very dull and monochrome, is because you're not expressive enough. So what to do about it? Well, there's only two major ways. Well, there's kind of three ways, but the third way is not a good way. Things like burning witches, burning heretics, picking some subclass of people and abusing them. That's pretty releasing of energies, but that's the negative releasing, okay? Group violence, rioting, that will release a lot of creative energies, but it's the wrong release. Drugs and alcohol, of course. Anyone who takes a drink knows that you get a high initially. Why do you get a high when you take a drink? You get a high when you take a drink because you're releasing the repression. And that's why suddenly certain people become more physically attractive and why you say sillier things. The people you're finding more attractive, alcohol, believe it or not, you actually find them attractive. You just don't realize you find them attractive. The silly things you say are true things. But also when we take too much alcohol, we go to a stage, we go up and then we go down. And this is the problem with alcohol, the problem with drugs. They will get you to this greater place, but they'll also pull you down. So they're not a satisfying result will not be had in that direction. So there's only two really ways. So we have the destructive ways, of course, which is alcohol and drugs and group violence. But let's say the creative ways. And the creative ways are spirituality and art. Spirituality, so you see, you can repress the emotion and you can release the emotion, but also you can sublimate the emotion. And art and spirituality sublimate. You're turning lead into gold. You're taking raw, unbalanced thoughts and feelings, and instead of crushing them, don't come out, you're working on them and you're expanding them. Now, spirituality is wonderful but difficult because we're looking at transmogrification of the soul. That's a big word. It's very difficult to, even if you're a spiritual person, to really, so balance all the imbalanced thoughts and feelings that you come to a stage of total peace and harmony, total true renunciation, where it's not about running away from life, but renunciation whereby all are balanced and all is well. Okay, Julian of Norwich, famous saint, used to say, "All was well, all is well, and all will be well." So that's spirituality. But let's say that's a difficult path. What can you do if you're not so spiritual? The easier path is art, an artistic expression. Okay. Now, don't get hung up on these. We've all seen those talent shows where you have 5-year-old kids who can sing amazingly and dance amazingly, and these young people are. I think it's great that we have these shows. I think it's great we have these people. But what we're trying to do is use artistic expression to release emotions and balance imbalances and heal ourselves. It doesn't matter. Say you take up singing or dancing. It doesn't matter if you're terrible at dancing. It doesn't matter if you're terrible at singing. So I think a failing we often have is we're expecting super duper results. Don't worry about the external results. It's art for art's sake, okay? The other thing when talking about artistic expression, it doesn't have to be art. It could be motorcycle maintenance. It could be going to the gym. It could be watching old movies, not binging on Netflix, like not just binging, but watching stuff that you really like, reading books that you really like, getting in touch with those, if you read a great book or you watch a great movie and you feel all sorts of meanings flowing through you, that's metaphor. If you go to the gym and you take it to the next level and you feel great, that's metaphor. So it could be dancing, singing, it could be doing DIY. So when I say artistic expression is anything that helps you express yourself. It's an art and it's expression, artistic expression. It doesn't mean you have to have a paint and a canvas, nor does it mean you have to be any good. It's about getting in touch with your inner creative side. It could be going down to your local football club and watching football because you love football. It doesn't matter what it is. But what does matter is getting in touch with that thing which makes you feel good, where there's metaphor in your life again, okay? We've probably all seen those like information programs from 1940s and 50s, and we see a society where people were heavily emotionally repressed. And thankfully, people are less emotionally repressed today. But sadly, what we've done since World War II is we simply lifted the repression, but there's no creativity. So there's more debauchery. There's more, you can sleep around and take drugs, and this is all acceptable. It wasn't acceptable years ago. But that doesn't make people happy. So when I'm saying expression, I don't mean, head off tonight to some bar and start chasing everybody sexually and stuff. That is not expression. That's just lifting the repression, and it only gives you a small relief for a little while till the repression builds back up in that bottle again. No, I'm talking about expression, expressing yourself, which for one person could be, watching a movie 2 nights a week in a cinema. For another person could be doing art or writing, whatever it is. Another person could be, doing some DIY work or embroidery or something. It doesn't matter what it is. Find something that you like doing, okay? And just do it. Another interesting aspect when you look at this is Zen. There's a book that was very popular some years ago, maybe the 1970s, I think, probably, or 80s, called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Now, what I like about that book, it's not really about motorcycle maintenance. It's really about Zen in life. And Zen is about being in the moment is Zen, okay? Or Zazen is the process of being in the moment. From Zen Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism. So the idea is that everything can be an art form. Everything can be an act of Zen, okay? When you first go to the gym, you know nothing. But if you get more into the gym over years and years and years, you start finding out more and more and more. I mean, if I look at my own life, I like, for many years, I liked doing weight training. And, the more I get into it, the more there's so many things about how the cells work, the biology behind it, the techniques used for lifting weights. There's also all the politics involved in the gym world, bodybuilding and all this. So there's so many different angles to, say, weight training, which are fascinating. And there's so many mysteries to, say, weight training, so many mysteries to riding a motorbike, so many mysteries to becoming a super duper seamstress. You know what I mean? So anything you take, if you take it with the right attitude, don't see it as a chore. You see, what we tend to have is learn the basics. But when you go learn the basics, you go beyond the basics, you kind of go from the basics to advance them back to the basics again. Like the pianist, he goes through levels and gets to a level of being like a master pianist, and guess what? Then they go back to the basics. And then they revisit the basics and find things they didn't know about again, and they work way back up. So everything is an art. Everything is a Zen, a Zazen. You can be in the now with anything, but you have to see it like that, okay? And the thing to realize is, again, this Mandelbrot idea of if I start mapping the coastline, it becomes infinitely infinite. If I start going into a subject that I love, it's like, if I stack a bunch of papers, one after the other, there's a slight gap, and I try and fill in the gap, I fill in the gap, fill in the gap. I can spend infinity trying to fill in the gap. I will never fill in the gap. That's metaphor. Metaphor is added meaning in your life. And as long as you're not getting added meaning, you have metonymy and you feel bored. And life becomes monochrome. So trying to become a more expressive version of yourself by seeing life as an art and finding out what it is that rocks your boat and doing it. That is the way to create metaphor. The second aspect I want to talk about here is journeying. And it's just a term I use, which makes me like going on your journey. And I think this is a big failing with a lot of self-help. This idea of a $3,000 weekend course. It's all bullshit. You see, you can't change in 2 or 3 days. Well, I suppose you could change, but by the end of the week, you're back again. I feel a lot of these courses are about you're going off to a beautiful location, usually, and hanging out with some nice people. And it's all a blast, and it feels like a high. But it doesn't matter how you felt. It's like a self-development holiday. How are you a week later, 6 weeks later, 6 months later, 6 years later? This is what we need. We need things that really help us change over time. And my personal feeling on this is that we need to go on a journey. We need a practice. So for me, for example, I do a thing called heartfulness meditation, www.heartfulness.org, and I find it really good. Other people are into yoga, some people into maybe philosophical reading or something, or different programs. But the thing is, it should be a daily practice, something you do every day, and you work on becoming better at it, and it becomes part of your practice or praxis of life. And on top of that, you can have some weekend workshops. So for example, when I got into all the self-development stuff initially, I signed up to a Gestalt, Gestalt, Gestalt group therapy course, which is an 80-hour course. It was 2 nights a week and the odd weekend here or there for a few months. And I found it very useful. It opened up, I didn't become an expert in Gestalt, but it opened up some windows of consciousness, some new ways of perceiving things, which is Gestalt is all about, that we're basically dulling down. We're not really here, we're dulling down. And it helped me gain a way of picking up on things and living more deeply. Okay. I also did some acting courses, and again, that helped me because I was very shy at the time. Later, we do counseling and psychotherapy and so on. So I did a lot of things. And so I basically believe a daily practice and some weekends here or there as a great way of doing something. You might say, "Hey, Dermot, I'm not into all this self-help stuff." Well, maybe you're into rock climbing, okay? Maybe you're into some kind of sport. Maybe you're into playing bridge or fly fishing. It doesn't matter. Do things that you like. And what you'll find is, you see, no human being knows everything, but we all have enough in our life. Enough is there for us to complete our journey. I do strongly believe that we're all having a journey here on this earth, and we have enough clues. Life in many ways is like a mystery hunt. You know those things you do in school where you hide something behind a door and something else is hidden in some building somewhere. You have to find all the clues, the mystery clue. Life is like that. It's this like mystery clue search thing where you it's all there. All that you need to solve your equation is there. Not somebody else's equation. To solve your equation is there. And often what we do is we don't know we have certain abilities. We don't know we have certain traits. So we have to explore, try different exposures, and if it seems like bullshit, drop it. But if you try exposing to different things, you go to this exercise course, you do this art program, this is meditation program, etc. Some of it will stick. The stuff that resonates with you, you stick with the stuff that resonates with you. And also you might find that there's things that you dropped earlier in life you're very good at, or you really like doing. I'm more focused on like doing than good at, because it doesn't do good at. Some people are doing things that are great at something, but they hate it. And some people won't do something even though they love it because they're not good at it. So these are not good. You should do things you like. But maybe you've dropped something that you should be doing because it's good for you. This is journeying. Journeying is turning your life into a journey. This is more important than expressiveness, because although expressiveness is important, when we journey and things like diary writing and self-reflection and all this stuff, we start reflecting on the journey. And when we reflect upon the journey, we start auto-correcting. We start correcting and working on things. A final analogy I would give before I sign out is gardening. Back when I used to live in Ireland, we have a lot of people gardening and people weeding out. You're doing weeding every day, but people don't weed their thoughts. They don't weed their negativity. But also, people don't plant. Okay, they don't plant seeds in their life, which will bear fruit. So when I'm saying planting seeds, I don't mean like growing a tomato tree in your backyard. I mean finding out things that maybe you like and putting a bit of time sowing the seeds, and then eventually you'll yield the benefit of that thing that you put time into, that artistic activity, that sporting activity, something that you like doing. So we seem to get it on a physical level, but in society we tend to ignore these, the inner levels. Okay, so if your life is not as meaningful as you want, it's a sign from yourself that you're bored, because human beings need to create. That doesn't mean we have to be a great artist, but we need to be creative. So you need to get in touch with your inner creativeness, maybe considering doing a bit of journeying, because that will feed the creativeness. Because as the journey goes on, you needed different food. When you're a baby, you needed baby food. When you're a kid, you had kiddie food. When you're an adult, you have adult food. And by the same token, the things that rocked your boat at 18 mightn't rock your boat at 38. What rocked your boat at 38 mightn't rock your boat at 78. So it's going to change over time. And if you start journeying, write down your life story and reflect upon your experiences and so on, you might start picking up on, I really like that, I'll go back to that. And I didn't like this, and I'll drop that. And that will really, the self-reflective life, as Plato says, the life not reflected upon is not worth living. So the reflected life is a journeying, and the journeying will help you, okay? Now, it could be difficult, and there can be phases when it's difficult to find meaning. But it's like searching for water. If you go 100 foot down and the well is not deep enough, you go 200 feet down, or 300 feet, or 400 feet down, until you eventually get to water. The water is the meaning and the metaphor. And the final thing I'd like to say here as well is self-concept. Self-concept is terribly important, because a lot of people have too limited a concept of who they are. And maybe they came from families which are super duper conservative and no sense of fun. So you might have to extend your comfort zone. Okay, you might have to extend your comfort zone a bit and find new avenues of expressiveness. Okay, if you're a person whose self-concept is very small. Okay, so that's basically it. If your life is monotonous and boring, it's a signal from yourself to dig deeper. And if you're digging deeper and still not getting the metaphor, just keep at it. Like a miner mining for gold, you'll eventually get there, because human beings are meaning machines. And keep at it, because the meaning will come. And that's what life is about. And the wonderful creativity of a human being is this, making meaning out of experiences. And that's what gives us context, as like the cherry on the icing and the chocolate sauce and the ice cream, whatever. It's the stuff that makes life enjoyable. Okay? So best of wishes in doing this. It might not be easy, but if you keep applying yourself, it will become easier. Okay, hope you have a nice day, and I'll talk to you next time.